A warm welcome to everybody to episode 2 of Women Talk Tech, where I get to talk to incredible women who are developing products and building companies, leading teams, and just using tech. And tonight it is my pleasure to talk to Miriam Ticini, who is a software developer. She's a coding teacher, she's a mom, and also the author of a fabulous book series, Xeris and Ona. And she's making computers really exciting, approachable and friendly, not just for kids, but for parents too. And welcome. It's so nice to talk to you this evening.
Thank you so much, Rav, for having me and for the invitation to join you in this series. I'm so happy to be here with you all tonight.
Great. So we first met only a couple of months ago at the We Are Tech Women Conference. Mm-hmm. So if anyone's watching and you're not part of We Are Tech Women, go and follow them because they're an amazing network for women. And I was sat on a panel event talking about how we empower girls into STEM. Mm-hmm. And you reached out to me, and I think we spoke the next day.
And it was amazing.
It was amazing. And we had this really long conversation. And we talked about the fact that we were really shocked by this one thing that we see in the industry quite a lot, being women in tech. And if anyone's tuning in now and they're wondering what that is, it's women make up only 17% of the tech workforce. And that's 17, not 70. Okay. So when tech is so exciting right now, how can that be?
Yes. That's a good question. That's a good question. So, as you said, technology is everywhere right now, right, Rav? And I think computers in any form are becoming such a big part of our lives that we cannot even keep up with it, right? It's like every new day there's something new, right? It's exciting, and our children are growing up in this world surrounded by them. So, I think if you see these days, it's not anymore like when we were children, in which was like, okay, are you going to go into a career in computer science or you're not, right? But the limits are completely blurry, you don't even know what is anymore computer science and what is not, or you might end up landing in a job, which suddenly you're doing more computer science than, the person next to you who actually went into computer science, right? So all is changing so fast, right? And here I want to tell the story, which was fascinating for me. So I went into, originally I was an architect, right? And I switched careers in 2013, right? And then to look for a job in a career in tech, right? And then the way that I looked for a job for the first time as a programmer was, I asked, okay, so here it is what I have in my hands. I can actually choose for the first time in my life in which industry I want to go. Which was for me because you're an architect, you look for a career in architecture, but as a programmer, there are jobs for us everywhere, and for me, that at that time was education. So for me, it was like, okay, I'm only going to send out CVs, in education, right? So I think there are so many options, to choose from. So I think that's on one hand. And then the challenge for us right now, what you're referring to about how is that possible, right? The challenge in our hands is to say, how are we going to communicate that to our children? We are doing something wrong, right? It looks like based on the numbers, right? So it's like we need to find ways in which we can really communicate to them that, look, understanding computers and how they work, it's really a superpower.
It is. And also, I think making tech really exciting, like COVID has really given us something to think about right now. So every business is online. If you're not online, you're not going to be successful right now. Everyone's pivoted. And,
yes,
when we weren't going into work, when our offices shut down, everyone was like, oh my gosh, our lives have come to a standstill. What are we doing? But our kids or everyone was watching Netflix, and it's all driven by technology. And what I say is, stop and think about who is behind, who is powering this technology. So we're booking our holidays online. Who is powering it? Somebody is sat behind there and they're developing code, or they're developing systems for us to be able to access all this exciting technology.
Yes.
I remember when my children during COVID, they were so excited that, they can order Nando's online. And, you say to yourself, it's an app. Who is developing this app? And so then it makes things really exciting.
Yes.
And I think that's what we really should be looking forward to. And we should tell children and parents that this is our future. It's only going to get better. Can you imagine what the world is going to look like next year or the year after? It's so exciting.
Yeah. But I have to say, like, I want to mention briefly, but I have to say that, I mean, I'm very positive as well, and I'm very optimistic by nature, right? But this weekend I was watching The Social Dilemma, which is this new documentary on Netflix, right? And well, that's a great example of what you're saying about you get to see that are really true people behind all these apps and, any tool that we are using at this moment. Go and watch it. Great insights. What I want to mention, though, is something that I loved from Kathy O'Neill, which is a data scientist in that documentary, and the definition that she gave about algorithms. She said algorithms is nothing more than opinions embedded in code. And I thought that was so beautiful. And then suddenly, right away, I started thinking, look, we really need as diverse as possible these teams, making those decisions, and then, wrapping it in this code, to be really like the world needs us, it cannot be that it's only 17% of women in those teams at this moment, making those important decisions for our lives.
Yeah. And they're actually developing the algorithms behind the tech we're using. So if women aren't being included, they're not going to service the community who's using this tech in the first place. So that's why we need women involved. But let me take you back, because when you were growing up, so you told me that when you were growing up, your dad wanted you to join, study computer science, but you didn't want to. But what put you off when you were a child?
Okay, so we're talking that I was born in 1984, right?
I didn't want your age.
You can do the math. But so that means my first contact with computers was like a 386, like you said, so, and then it was MS-DOS, and yeah, still. There is this day that I remember like it was yesterday, that the neighbor came with one of his friends, and he had built a memory game for us, for my sister and for myself, in a floppy disk, right? And I remember the way that people were talking about this man who had built the game. And they were talking as if it was this genius, I've built many memory games already. And I felt a little bit like, why was that? Why is it that in that moment in history in my life, the conversation around it was not more like, this is something that we all can do if you want to do it, and it's not only done by geniuses like Rodolfo. His name was Rodolfo. I don't think he's listening, but just in case, thank you for the memory, Rodolfo. But yeah, and I wanna live in a world right now in which if I would be there again, okay, I get the floppy disk, and then I would ask, okay, so show me the code, right? Yes, great, but show me the code, I wanna, and for that I think somehow we need to rewrite the history of computers, and what it means and what they are, and to make kind of a facelift, right?
Yes. Change it so it works for the society who's using it today. Make it really exciting. Yes. And I think so you are very, it is very exciting. And the interesting thing about you was, even though you do want to go into computer science when you were younger, you were very creative. So you became an architect, and then you met your boyfriend and started having geeky conversations with him, and all of a sudden it sparked your interest in computers, and then you suddenly started coding.
Mm-hmm. That was my story. That was the story. So actually, when I met him, and he said, and I asked, like, so what do you do, right? And he was like, I'm a programmer. And I thought, oh my, hello, Dad. Thank you for sending this to me. But yeah, I think it was because it gave me the opportunity to see it from the inside, which
because he was a programmer, so you get to see what
yes.
it's really
So
about, right?
he was a programmer. He is a game programmer, and he loves his work, right? And then, well, if this was the story, like, what are we gonna do this weekend, and he would say, I want to code. And I was like, okay, so he's having a lot of fun with this, there must be something here, so let's give it a try, right? And I think for me also, what it gave me the ability to start from the top, like I really got to see what legacy code was, like what this immense that it was immense, like, and I got to see that the things that he was doing with that, from the inside, like at home, and it was kind of, I'm an insider here, I felt like a kind of insider, and then it was super quick that I said, okay, you know what, I'm gonna give it a try, and there must be something for me there.
Yeah, brilliant. And then the interesting thing about that was, I think you had your baby. Mm-hmm. And you were reading your baby storybooks, and we talk about the journey that you can take someone through a book, which it's with all books, yeah. So when your children are little, that's how they go along with that story. That's where the idea came from for Zoe Sonona.
Yeah, exactly. So the inspiration for the book series came 3 years ago when I had my son, and then his dad and I, working both of us in the tech industry, we started thinking about the way in which we'd like to introduce him to the world of computers. And well, we already, on one hand, as you said, we started looking at the things that we were already doing at home, which was reading books. And then we didn't see many books, introducing this topic to kids, while computers were everywhere in our home, and I needed this tool to help him understand that part of the reality around him, right? So that was that. And then in the past, I was teaching programming to other people and to switch careers into tech, as I did myself when I got my kids, And then what I learned as a teacher is that stories are so important, and especially when they are learning something new, right? So I said, okay, one thing that I learned during my classes, actually, like if you ask any of my students, they would say, like, we are not using computers. And I was like, we need to talk about code. Like, we didn't come here to code, like, it's important to get this right, And then what I saw, it's like, most of the times they felt much more confident after I talked with them about code, after they heard my stories about APIs, or they heard my stories about RESTful, and I don't know, like, you name it, right? So I thought, okay, how can I bring all that knowledge that I had from my days as a teacher into people's homes, and help parents actually open up and guide the conversation with the kid in order to create this connection. Because I think the problem that we were talking about before, I think the problem is in the connection, like, it's not about whether we're going to go into tech or not, it's about, okay, something is clear, there are women that they are already attracted to computer science. Great, we got them, but the challenge is, how do we get these other women that are not able to connect via a robotics class or via a Scratch course, because it's something else, right? So there's that. And also, when I sat down and I started thinking about how I wanted to approach this Theros and Ona project 3 years ago, I started thinking about the things that I loved when I was little. And I thought, okay, this can be it, So that's a big reason. There's a big reason why I use illustration and storytelling to teach children about computers, because those are two of the things that I loved the most when I was little.
Yeah.
And when learning something new, the vehicle of communication becomes as important as the thing that we're trying to teach. It becomes, the medium becomes an opportunity for connection.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's what we need to work on.
Yeah.
So
but
if you look at
I was just going to say, your book is genius, because Xeris and Ona takes people through a journey of ones and zeros.
Yes. So it's here. This is the new one. I got it too. I have to show you. So I got it like two. This is a computer inside. Everyone looking. This is how it looks like. So yeah, for me it was like, okay, so if you take this book, for example, right? So for me, the challenge was like, how do you create that connection? And not only the connection between the child and the technology, but also the connection between the child and the parent, or the child and the educator, like to engage them in that conversation, right? So this book, for example, it's going to kind of be like the first title. It's the second book, but it's a pre-sequel of the one that I published last year, because many readers were like, okay, but we want to know more about Ferus and Ona, we want to know more about who they are and where are they coming from, right? So I said, okay, this is going to be for the little ones, and I'm going to make sure that the connection is there.
Yeah.
So it's very short story. It's written in the form of a poem. It turns into a song, and I'm working with a live coding musician to include some programming into the music in the background. We are finalizing the last touches, and it looks awesome. And then the whole process would be, okay, you start reading Ferus and Ona, you kind of walk through that whole journey that you're saying, in which it's like, hey, they live inside computers, they are zeros and ones, they are bits and bytes, and then you start introducing some concepts. Then they learn is a song, they actually dance it, and when
they pick
it
up, they pick it up, they remember it, like you do a nursery rhyme, And I think it's pretty,
exactly.
But the book that you wrote last year was about Xeris had a virus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Xeris gets a virus, and Ona tries to help him get rid of his infection, right?
Yes.
How wonderful is that for kids to explain it in a totally different way and get them excited about computers and also technology?
Yeah.
They're getting to understand what viruses mean, what infections mean, the inside of the computer. You're telling us a story in a totally different way and taking them on a journey with you. And the nicest thing is that you actually get parents involved. So for those parents who don't know anything about technology, they're learning too.
Yes. That was the whole vision that I had in the beginning, was nothing more than saying, how can I get this mom or this dad in bed with their children and talk about technology?
Yeah. It's absolutely fantastic.
I got it. Look, so in one of the last events, it's amazing. In one of the last events, before all this started, I was reading the book with a girl, right? And I said, okay, I might be, guiding the conversation, and, she might need some help. She was 4, Rav. And suddenly she started saying, oh, but look. So at the end of the book, they arrive at the antivirus. There's a waiting room, and then there are some posters on the wall. And then she says, like, did you see these posters? And I was like, yeah. Look, there are Trojans, there are worms, and there are bots. And they are all very bad. I was like...
She got it.
Brilliant. And I was like, okay, I can go to bed today. I made my work.
How exciting is that? And I know that you're going to bring some more books out fairly soon. I think one was about, data and security?
Yes, that's coming... things with COVID got a little bit, confused. So the one coming up this autumn is this one. Mm-hmm. So welcome to our world. Yeah, for the little ones. Then there's one. I have a plan for 5 books in the next 3 years, so a total of 5 books. And then the next one, it's going to be about mathematical operations, and then Ferus and Ona are visiting the arithmetic and logic unit. And something is going on there, so I already have an idea for the story. Mm-hmm. And then the other one is going to be, I really need to do data and privacy. So I don't know still how I'm going to do that, but there are some ideas there about how all this information is traveling, and maybe Ona gets in trouble, So yeah. And then, well, next to the books, I'm doing a free series, because the whole idea for me is actually to get everyone. They are in a mission, right? Like Terus and Una are in this mission, which is making computer science accessible to everyone, right?
Yeah.
So every 2 weeks, I send out a newsletter, free stories, to get parents engaged and start collecting their own stories of computers. Okay. Because I think what we lack is stories to tell at home over dinner.
Yeah.
That's what we need.
Yeah.
So this is something that goes out every 2 weeks, and I prepare a PDF for your listeners, so they can get it at terusanona.com/Cajigo. They'll get the link later. I think we talked about.
Yeah, we'll put that to the comment.
Yes.
Some connector just asked, are they available in English? Where can we buy them?
Yes, they are available in English. The first one is already in English and Spanish, in Dutch and German. And the second one is going out in English. And the best way to get the English version is via the website at terusanona.com. And I'm going to be shipping again in November, both books. And then for the other languages, they are on Amazon. So they'll find them there as well.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But yeah.
And for Cajigo members are going to be able to download that PDF anyway. So we'll put details at the end. Yes. And we're talking about storytelling. So how important is storytelling for you? So, we've talked about young kids and, how we can get them interested through books. And nurseries and schools can buy your books. I think it would be brilliant for the younger girls. But when we start looking at older girls, how important is it to talk about stories and the journey in tech? Because role models play a really, really important part in trying to, I guess, influence and empower other girls to start thinking that tech is for them.
Yes. Yeah. And there, you're doing a brilliant job.
So you. We know so many people in the industry, don't we? Big shout out to everyone tonight who is actually paying it forward and, giving up their time to really see more girls and women work in the tech industry. But, role models for me, role models are really, really important. If you can see someone doing a job in tech, you're more inclined to join it in. And I strongly believe in that. The work that I do in schools, for instance. June was on our on episode 1 last week, and she is actually the brand ambassador for Cajigo, and she's on my poster. And I remember taking her into a school, and when the girls walked in, we had 15 girls walk into a workshop, and they looked at the poster, and then they looked at me and they said, "Oh, I bet she's just a model." And I'm like, "No, actually, she's a woman in tech." And there was silence.
Yes.
And they're like, "You telling me this woman works in technology? Tell us more." And all of a sudden, it was an icebreaker. They all wanted to know, who this lady was. She, what she was developing, what she was doing, how did she get into tech, where, and, we got them to Google her. And they were blown away. I mean, like everyone was last week with June, she's amazing, but they were absolutely blown away. And, it is right. Someone's just said representation matters.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It does. Yeah. It does. Yeah.
And we need to see more role models. And I think you talked about listening to your inner voice as well. If we can get girls to start listening to their inner voices, how does that work?
How I see because we are all seeking our path, you could say in that sense. And in this case, I was seeking my path. Like, I was seeking creativity in tech for years, like I wanted to see, I can be creative doing tech, right? So I think there are 2 legs under that table. And one is looking out, get inspired, get people that actually are able to fire that inside of you, and get you moving and create the momentum that you need to be able to do the work that you're meant to be doing in the world, right? But on the other side of that table, there's this moment in which you say, okay, I gather enough input, now I'm going to go home and I'm going to listen inside, right? And I think that's as important as the other side. So how do you do that? I personally wish that I discovered journaling much earlier in my life. It sounds very simple. It sounds very simple.
Yeah.
But, well, Ferus and Ona were born in my journal. Yeah. Like, I started journaling 3 years ago, and I was like, wow, what is this? How come, so now it's becoming more popular, like, remember, it was the 80s, the 90s, we had other ways maybe of growing up, but there's this book, Playing Big, from Tara Moore, and she talks a lot about how to listen to that voice within, and create a relationship with your inner mentor, let's say, without living out.
Yeah, yes. It's very powerful, and it's more about teaching people, or teaching girls to start listening to their inner voice and listening to their, and I guess it's a belief system, isn't it?
Yes.
You give yourself that belief system that you can do it, and it becomes so empowering and then motivating for yourself. So where we look to others to motivate us, you then have that, you empower yourself, don't you? To go.
I think it is Elizabeth. I think it is Elizabeth Gilbert that once said that what she does in her journal, it's actually to write love letters to herself daily.
Oh, lovely! I love that.
And I thought that was amazing, right? Because we need to remind ourselves daily, what we want and what we envision, and the day gets very messy.
Yeah. It does.
So someone is asking if I journal on paper or an advice. I journal on paper, always paper, always.
Yeah.
And the way I started, it's morning pages. So you wake up, you do 3 pages in your journal of anything that pops your mind, and the idea comes from Julia Cameron, from The Artist's Way, and a friend of mine actually pushed me a lot into reading that book before getting pregnant, and I was like, no, I don't really, and then I got pregnant, I got this baby, and my life was such a chaos that, what, it cannot be worse, let's give it a try. And they tell you normally, like, the first 100, your morning pages are going to be very boring. Don't expect anything fascinating happening there. And I remember my first 100 pages were like, okay, so why is this baby not sleeping? And then suddenly one day, I discovered that, that whole thing with creativity, and I missed the sketching and the coloring from my architecture days. And then Ferus and Ona were there. And then it was all about Ferus and Ona. And it was all about, getting to know these characters, and healing that whole relationship with creativity. And basically having that creative practice, daily creative practice that a lot of people were talking about. And I was like, I think this is something for me. Again, the inner mentor, right?
Yes.
Like the inner mentor appeared there and said, look, Miriam, you haven't seen anyone having a creative daily practice, in your life, okay, get out there, look for people that are doing that, and integrate it into your life and communicate that to your husband. Yeah. So many people ask, like, how did you get around with Ferus and Ona, having a kid, and well, Raf, here's the hack. I talked with my husband and I told him, look, 3 times a week, I'm going to get out from the house at 6:30 in the morning. I'm going to go to a cafe next to your office, and you're going to bring me the baby at 10 o'clock in the morning. Please. I need this.
Yeah.
And the first day that I got out from that door, I want to say this because there are a lot of women listening, and it is important. It was important for me. I felt very guilty, Raf.
Yeah.
Of leaving
baby behind. Yeah.
But it was important.
Yeah.
So, and again, it was the inner, it was really listening, like, and saying, look, to be a great mother, I need this.
Yeah. And you needed your space to do that, to push yourself, but also you need that support network, don't you? You need a partner to be supportive of what you're doing.
Yes. And he is. He's the, yeah. He was my role model in 2013 when I when I went into tech, when still there were not so many women out there that I could reach to. So yeah.
And I think it's really important if you are an entrepreneur, or if you are a female founder, to have that time for yourself. It becomes very stressful sometimes, when you are building these products, to have time for yourself.
Yes.
So you can take yourself away from that family environment just for a little while, and concentrate in your own zone. I think that's really important, and create that space for yourself. But you know what? We've been chatting for 30 minutes. It goes so quickly, doesn't it? So
it's super quickly.
I know. Just to finish off. So what's the advice that we can give to parents and educators on what they can do to help, I guess, young ones perhaps, think about technology?
Okay, so here's what happened in that event that you and I met. I went into one of the chat rooms, and then there was one about STEM, and I introduced myself there, and I told briefly what I was doing, and then one dad reached out to me, and he said, look, awesome, but here's my situation. I have a 6-year-old girl at home that I like to encourage more into STEM, and there's no way, no matter how hard I try, I cannot get that. How do I do that? And then when I read that message, I thought, 6 years old, Rav. That's so early. He was saying she already sees technology as a boy thing. And I was, how could that be? Even now, it's okay if it was 30 years ago when my dad was there trying to encourage me and I was in front of an MS-DOS screen, right? But right now, okay, so that's one thing. So I think getting them engaged early is key, right? If you hear that stories, because during my research, after speaking with many teachers and many parents, I can tell you he's not alone there. So he's not alone. So we need to start as early as possible before this gender gap tunes in. And also, I think we need to start more and more looking for unexpected and surprising connections between technology and the world around us. To actually be able to communicate that technology is everywhere and it's in every industry, and to find examples that connect with your child's interests. So I'd say, and let it be fashion. So just let's give some examples. So let it be fashion, let it be arts, let it be animals. There are people in those 3 industries, doing already things with technology. Right? Go find them. Go find them. So I'd say, what is it that your child already loves? Go out there, do some research, and then find someone working in that field. And these are the types of conversations that I wish to see happening more and more between parents, teachers, and kids. I think that's a wonderful place to start.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree with you. And I think when children are little, let them be curious, let them ask the questions. And as parents, I think we can always do that little something of going onto Google and finding out a little bit more about it, and then going back to our child and telling them. It's a two-way thing. I think, let's make tech fun at home. When the parent and children learn together, I think that's really exciting.
Yes.
And then for the older girls, when we're talking about, girls in secondary schools, we have young women, at university. Again, we start to see them drop off, don't we? And even if
I'm also reading. I'm reading
out what's going on. But how do we keep those girls and women connected to tech? What do we? And I think sometimes using that example of fashion, when I do my workshops, I ask them, what do you want to be when you're older? And sometimes I get, I want to be a hairdresser, I want to be a beautician. But let me tell you, hairdressers and beauticians use tech too. There's lots of apps that you can use for hairdressers. There's lots
I love that example.
Build for beauticians. There's a fantastic lady called Sharmadine Reed. If anyone's tuning in, go and Google her. She runs something called Beauty Stack. She's got a platform built for makeup artists, beauticians, hairdressers, She's doing so well in this space, and I think she's a great role model for young girls who are looking to move into that space. But
amazing.
And what are your thoughts?
Well, I think if she's already thinking or whether she should or she shouldn't, break into a career in tech, I'd say, okay, so the fact that she's already thinking about it, it means that there's gonna be something in there for her, because it's just a matter of digging in, and then find that right angle for her, because, well, it is not about learning to code, and becoming a programmer anymore, this thing with working in tech, but there are many different roles to play in tech that could match her strengths and the skills that she already has. And I think it's important for them to know this, so let me refer back to an interview that I read the other day with a tech copywriter. And I like this example because it shows how you don't need to love maths, or coding or electronics to actually get a rewarding career, a job in tech, not a rewarding job in tech. So her job is about interviewing experts, right? And then doing some research on her own, and then create a compelling story for business buyers around what a specific technology can do for their organization and whatnot. And I found this story very inspiring and insightful because here I am, years later, I didn't think about this link. I didn't think that there was such a role in which you said, you know what, I really love tech and I'm going to make it comprehensible. I'm going to do some freelancer because I love writing, and I'm just going to make computers, understandable. And, I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah.
I really, and if you looked at her, she also didn't look like a woman in tech,
Yeah.
And
what
she's
does a woman in tech look like?
And she's rocking it, I don't know. I don't know. We need to do some facelift there.
But this is the thing. It's like we band it around quite a lot, don't we? Woman in tech. But I think we need to demystify it because a woman in tech doesn't look a certain way. They look like what we see in society. It's very diverse, and you can be anything you want to be. And like you said, that example is really great. If we're talking to young girls about moving into the tech industry, just follow your passion. Be curious and follow your passion, and you will find a way into technology really, really easily.
Does that mean that they need to go into computer science? Not really, but I think go do your thing, become tech savvy on the side, and then find it, because I can get it. I can get it that many girls don't want to go into computer science. You remember the time that I went into switch careers, right? 2013 again. And the first idea was I'm going to go back to university. I'm going to do this degree. It's going to be information technology, I think it was called. And I ordered some books, and I was like, I don't want to do this. So
back in the day, that was different, though. I guess it's changed a lot now.
Maybe. I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. But for me, finding online courses, and there are many free trials out there, and finding the right one, the right teacher, again, like what we said, about mentors and teachings and so on. It is also important when you are learning about technology. Yeah, I think that's also very important.
And I would say to any parents out there who are watching tonight, if you want your children to start coding, go and ask the head teacher why you can't run a coding class after school, in an after school club. Do it online. We've got loads of coding clubs that, take place around regions. And in fact, I did that for my son. They didn't have one at their school and we organised one. And we probably had 28 girls interested in going to a coding class.
And I want to say also, if possible, get a woman teaching it.
And why?
I think that's important. I think that's if you can do that, because again, representation matters. So if there's no option, there's no option, right? Yeah. But
and it's all about role models.
Exactly.
If you see someone teaching that, you'll think that it's a career for women from a very young age. Perfect.
Exactly.
Well, it's been an absolute joy to talk to you today.
Same here.
We could talk forever, couldn't we?
I think so. So eventually we'll get around.
We will. So we're just going to finish off by saying, if you want to purchase any of the books that were mentioned today, then go to the website, zerosandona.com. We have got some PDFs that you can download from Cajigo. And because we knew that we would not have enough time, we did ask some questions. We talked about some things earlier today. So Miriam has kindly answered some of my questions, and we put it into a blog. So you can actually go into Cajigo and read the rest of our conversation there. Lots of tips there for everyone. Yeah.
And I also want to say that if you want to follow my work or you want to get in touch, actually, Instagram is not the best place to do that. So there's an email, miriam@zerosanona.com. If you like what you're seeing, send me a message. I really love to connect. Yeah. So thank you all for being here today.
Yeah, and Miriam is also a mentor on Cajigo. So if you want some advice from Miriam, download Cajigo, connect with her, and start off a conversation. I think, if you can do that, then she'll give you some great pointers as well. Okay, so lovely to have you. Thank you so much this evening.
Thank you so much.
Next week's guest is absolutely awesome, so I hope you all join me next week. This lady, during COVID, did not have a job. She had a budget every single week to feed her kids a meal, but she plowed through it. She put in 200 job applications, and she ended up with 3 offers. And if you want to know which job she took, tune in next week, and we'll be talking to a lady called Sunita. So thank you so much, Miriam. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Rav.
Okay.
Have a nice evening, everyone. Bye.
Hi, I'm so sorry about that. Just bringing in Miriam right now. I hope everyone's had a good Monday and excited to do this live with Miriam today. Hopefully she won't be long. And I think she's here. Are you in, Miriam? Just waiting to connect to Miriam. Here!
Hey!
How are you?
I'm good now.
I was starting to wonder.
We made it. Yeah, it's the first time for me in an Instagram live. So I was like, how does this work? But I'm here.
We're here now, yay! And it's 8 o'clock on Monday night.
It's 9 o'clock here.
9 o'clock.
It's 9 o'clock here.
Same.
So it's not the best moment in the day for me. So let's see how that goes.
Let's see how it goes. So, welcome
I'm in Spain.
Good. So
you have a beautiful ceiling there. It's a beautiful ceiling.
Oh, is
the lights that you have?
We've got the lights up today.
Nice.
Make it nice and cozy for a Monday evening. I hope everyone's got their cup of tea or a drink, whatever they're having.
Hi, everyone.